Okay, so we got some awesome news earlier this week, and that's that Apple has now officially allowed emulators to be downloaded off of the App Store, which is a massive deal for playing games on the go with your iPhone. I absolutely love emulators. I've been playing around with them ever since I was a kid, and I honestly still to this day play them almost daily, I would say, pretty regularly. The way that emulators work is basically everything around you these days is some type of a computer, and a computer just reads code and gives you an output. So technically speaking, you could run just about any set of code on any computer and get the result that you're looking for. You know, video games are just a bunch of code. So the only thing stopping you from playing a video game on any particular computer of your choice would be the built-in software or operating system that blocks you from doing so for whatever reason or another. So emulators will take a video game file and then read it in a way that your computer can interact with it as if it was running on its original native hardware. Basically, if you want to play a Game Boy game on an iPhone or like a GameCube game on your PC, for example, you can't just plug in the game and it'll read it. You need this software that's called an emulator to act as the game console virtually. So you can put pretty much any game system that's ever existed on any type of computer that allows you to run emulators. And right now, the most popular emulator on the App Store, or really the only one I've seen getting around at all, would be the Delta emulator, which originally started out 10 years ago. I remember I was a freshman in high school, and this was the hottest shit back then. Apple didn't have as many restrictions against third-party app development back then. And there was a third-party app you could download called GBA for iOS that kind of kickstarted the whole like emulation race on the iPhone, if you will, because emulators have always been available through jailbreaks, but jailbreaking an iPhone is the most annoying shit in the world. And honestly, it can take years depending on whatever software version you're running. And even still working around those things are just super complicated or not even possible sometimes. So the fact that there is a fully Apple supported variant of an emulator out right now, just free to download, is massive. This has really been like years in the making. And this Delta app allows you to emulate Game Boy games, Game Boy Color games, Game Boy Advance games, Super Nintendo games, N64, and I'm pretty sure that's it for right now. Right, Nintendo DS as well. But those are all great systems to start with. And this is just the beginning. I mean, it's only a matter of time before somebody comes out with a fully fleshed out PlayStation 2 emulator or whatnot. Because most of these Apple phones these days are capable of running pretty much anything PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era. I actually have over here, this was a refurbished Galaxy S20 something. It's like a 3 or 4 year old Samsung Galaxy phone. And I bought this at a really good price. It was like $130 at Walmart, something like that. And I bought this literally just to emulate video games everywhere I go. Android's been on this shit from the beginning because everybody knows that Android is actually better than Apple. Apple just uses social shaming to get you to buy their products. I swear to God, the only reason I have an iPhone is because iMessage. I wouldn't get laid nearly as much if I was a green bubble man. But yeah, this phone right here can run GameCube, PlayStation 2, every handheld you can imagine. I even have like Kingdom Hearts 2 running on there very smoothly, which is pretty impressive for a phone. And you can connect your controllers with Bluetooth so that you get as many wireless controllers as you want. And I normally, like, whenever we're watching football on Sundays, we'll have like multiple TVs going. So I'll bring the phone to my friend's house and we'll just like play a bunch of old classics like NBA Street. NHL 04 is my favorite NHL game. Got that going a lot. Played Smash Brothers. Just all kinds of shit. It's really awesome to be able to carry all of these like good ass fucking games right in your pocket. Like if I had this as a child, I was playing all of these games sitting in front of a TV and I could only ever do that from home. This would have completely blew my mind as a child. I mean, like, I would have had like no life at all. So it's just awesome that technology has come this far. And if you're pretty new to emulating video games, I would recommend you actually try doing it on your computer at first, because there's so many more like options that you have at your disposal to mess around with whatever game you're emulating. You know, like on my PC, I have like all the PS2 games I have on here. They're all in like 4K upscaled resolution, some of them with like new texture packs and cheats and whatnot. Emulators usually have a lot of customization options that make it so that you can play these games like in an even better way than if you were to play them on the native hardware. That sounds weird, but like when I have NBA Street running in 4K on something like this that I could just plug into a TV and boom, you're done. I mean, that's pretty fucking crazy. And I did not expect this coming from Apple. I am not an Apple fan whatsoever. I think that they're very annoying as far as like consumer tech products go. Apple always wants to just bend you over and fuck you in the ass and make you ask for more. Like they make you do everything within their own ecosystem, and it's just frustrating flat out. There's almost no reason why all of Apple's like products and accessories need to be proprietary, whereas like everything else on Android is just compatible with everything, and it just fucking works, you know? Like Apple just makes you do everything their way, and it's the worst. It's not pro creativity. Oftentimes it's even kind of anti-consumer, but this is a big W for Apple right now. What frustrates me though is a couple years ago, I had a jailbreak running on a modern iOS version on my iPhone, and I updated my phone and it wiped my jailbreak. Dude, like with the iOS I'm sitting at right now, it's going to take years before I can even jailbreak my iPhone again, which is super frustrating. I had a GameCube on there. I had the Dolphin emulator. I would bring Smash Brothers, Pro Skater, all that shit right on my phone to anywhere I went. Like that's crazy to just be able to connect into any TV you want and play like any game console ever pre PS3, Xbox 360. But we're getting closer to being able to do that without a jailbreak altogether like you can on Android, and that's fantastic. I can't wait for more emulators to come out, and it's crazy to think that in less than 10 years from now, we're probably going to start seeing PS3 and Xbox 360 emulators even on just our phones with how powerful computers are getting. But I'm just making this to encourage you all to start trying out emulating different games if it's something that you're new to, because for years I've had this video idea on the shelf where I really want to like showcase what you can do with emulation and all the different emulators I use, the different tricks that you can mess around with. I think emulation is super important because it's the only thing that like guarantees the longevity of video games, and you can get like really creative with the way that you go about playing a game that you've already played a bajillion times years in the past. Like since I was in high school playing Game Boy on my iPhone, I almost can't play any turn-based RPG games without fast forward anymore. Like I need it to be at absolute crackhead level speed for me to even have the patience to get through a Pokemon fight at this point. So like, you know, big ups Apple here. Just to touch on one of the common debates we hear around emulation, you know, like, is it ethical? Is it fair to the original creators to go out and procure their games in a questionable manner instead of just going on eBay and buying the old hardware natively? Look, like I've even got some games here to show you guys. It's like I own most of the video games that I would use on emulators anyway, or like I actually like physically still have a copy, at least is what I'm saying. I rarely have like gone to emulate a game that I've never owned or played before. Although sometimes like that's the only way you can access these games. And this is my point where it's like all of these game companies and Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, all of them, they don't really put a lot of investment in towards the longevity of their platforms or their games. They're always on to the next newest thing all the time. And a lot of games like really get left behind as far as like support and re-releasing and remastering goes. You know, like if we as consumers have the technology to improve a game's graphics or make it more compatible with modern hardware, or get access to games that like aren't even for sale anymore from the original creator, it's like, how can you blame us? I mean, when we already have paid like those games I just showed you, I've already like paid, I've bought so many video games in my life. It's like they've gotten their money out of me. And if these companies aren't going to go out of the way to preserve their games and make them accessible for everyone to have in their library, then I mean, someone's got to do it. You know, if Nintendo and Game Freak would let me just download Pokemon onto my iPhone or whatnot, like sure, I would pay money for that or whatnot, but they don't just offer that, you know? So like, I don't feel bad at all trying to play like an old Pokemon game on a computer that is like significantly more powerful than the original hardware that I already own. I'm not going to play Pokemon on my original Game Boy Color when like I literally own a device that's more powerful than half the supercomputers of like 30, 40 years ago. Not even. I mean, this thing doesn't even have a fucking backlight. So if you ask me, as long as games aren't super accessible or easy to access at an affordable, reasonable price, then I don't really see a problem with emulation in general. It's not like if I were to buy like Pokemon Gold from a used game store or anything like that. It's not like any of that money goes back to Nintendo or Game Freak anyway. But yeah, I've got a lot of different emulation devices laying around in my house. I've got a Raspberry Pi over back there connected to one of my TVs. And I bought a more modern Game Boy handheld that has like a backlight and whatnot and runs on a smaller Raspberry Pi Zero. So like I'd love to do a deeper dive video on emulation as a whole at some point. You guys can look out for that one coming up. But yeah, go on the App Store and download Delta and let me know, guys, what some of your favorite games to emulate are.